Welcome into this special edition of WTOL 11 News on Plus. I'm Kaylee Marentet. Tonight we're tracking three big court cases. The outcomes involve the lives of 6 people. First, 3 young brothers. Their father is locked up for their disappearance. Now a judge will determine whether there's reason to believe they're still alive. Then a young brother and sister killed when a driver crashed into a boat club hosting a child's birthday party. The woman behind the wheel is now on trial. And finally, a woman who went missing in April of 2021, Dee Warner. Police found her body late last year, welded inside a fertilizer tank. Her husband is charged with killing her. Now another suspect is charged in connection to Dee's death. Police arrested Jared Warner on charges of accessory to murder and evidence tampering this weekend. Jared is Dale Warner's son. Dale is charged with killing Dee. We spoke with a close family friend in court today.
It's shocking, honestly. It's another step, I guess, towards getting justice and figuring out exactly what happened on April 21st of 2021.
You always felt that there was someone else involved. Did you expect it to be him?
Probably not, no. I don't think that I ever expected Jared. He's very young. He actually is an extremely intelligent young man. He's always done really well in school. He's held great jobs. So I would have thought that he'd be smarter than trying to get involved in something, that could potentially ruin the rest of his life.
28-year-old Jared Warner is also the temporary legal guardian of Dee and Dale's minor daughter. Dale Warner, meantime, is set to go on trial for murder in September. Testimony in an effort to declare 3 brothers missing since 2010 wrapped up this afternoon in Lenawee County. The effort is to get these boys declared legally dead. Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner Skelton were last seen alive on Thanksgiving in 2010. Now, 15 years later, their dad remains locked up. He's charged with unlawful imprisonment, but is scheduled to get out of prison later this year. But no bodies have ever been found, and no one else has ever been charged.
I have no doubt in my mind that John Skelton killed Andrew, Tanner, and Alexander Skelton.
I believe that it's very hard for them to come to grips with the fact that their son probably killed their grandkids. I believe that they knew and they know that he did something horrible, but they just come up short of admitting that to me.
I'm confident they're deceased.
And are you confident that they were killed on or about November 26th?
I am.
You just heard strong testimony from authorities involved in the search for the missing Skelton brothers. Court began with the judge offering John Skelton a chance to take part in the hearing, a chance he immediately declined.
They told me I had to refuse here, and that's it. There we go.
Very good. Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Skelton, you have the opportunity but not the obligation to participate in today's hearings. But I did want to make sure that you had that opportunity. So you're welcome to tell me for the record now if you'd like to stay or go.
Yeah, I want to go. I mean, everyone else got lawyers. I don't. I'm at a disadvantage. Anything I say isn't going to make a difference right now.
We also learned today that the Thanksgiving incident wasn't the first custody issue between John and the boy's mother, Tanya. Former Morenci Police Chief Larry Weeks testified that the boys' school called Tanya in September of 2010. School officials say John was acting strangely when he picked up 2 of his sons. He reportedly said he was taking Andrew and Alexander on vacation to Florida and told school leaders they would need to start forwarding records for the boys there. Tanya called police, who talked with John. She eventually had to go to Florida with her youngest son, Tanner, to get the boys back home to Michigan. So the former Morenci police chief testified today that he was familiar with the Skeltons and described what happened once the call came in on Black Friday 2010 when John was supposed to bring the boys home to their mother.
On November 26, I was at home. I received a call in the evening from Officer Hillard. He indicated he was at the Fulton County Medical Center near Waseon, Ohio. He explained to me over the phone that he had what I would describe as a disturbing situation. I explained that John was there with an ankle injury and was acting extremely erratic. He was having a difficult time getting specific information out of him as far as what had transpired and led him to this point at the hospital. He explained that the whereabouts of John and Tanya's children, Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner, 9, 7, and 5, were unknown at this point, and he was concerned about their safety.
Did he bring up the name Joanne too?
He went on to explain that the best he could get from John was that they were with a woman by the name of Joanne Taylor, and Joanne's husband was, his name was Mark, and he was a pastor.
Did Mr. Skelton say anything about suicide or trying to kill himself?
Yes, and that and it was implied that's how he injured his ankle, and it was his intention to harm himself. Ultimately, secured a ride from a family member after the failed attempt to the hospital.
It's fair to say he failed to kill himself. Well, you'll understand.
That's what he described.
The search began immediately. Crews from Morenci Police and eventually federal agencies searched the area. Police found Skelton's house in what Weeks described as disarray. They sent up posts to talk with drivers in areas they believe John Skelton may have traveled on Thanksgiving Day. Hundreds of volunteers came together to search hundreds of acres of property. Cell phone records would eventually show John's phone pinged near the village of Holiday City in Williams County. And John claimed he gave the boys to a secret organization. An investigation later determined he gave the name Joanne Taylor and that was made up. John may have actually been posing as Joanne. This is what police found in John Skelton's social media.
We found a Facebook post from November 24th where he states, and I quote, "I love my wife very much. May God and Tanya forgive me."
Was there another one around on that same day, about 2.5 hours after that?
Yeah, he messaged, I don't know their relationship in total, but a Herschel Ward, at least an acquaintance of his, that said he was killing himself tonight, but right now he was fine.
FBI Special Agent Corey Burroughs took the stand next. He says he was working at the Bureau's field office in Ann Arbor. He was one of the first federal agents called in after the Amber Alert went out for the boys. He said John Skelton showed up at a hospital in Fulton County the day after the boys went missing. That's after John says he tried to die by suicide. Instead, he told police he hurt his ankle and left a note, which police later found in his home.
There was a spiral notebook with a 3-page handwritten suicide note. It was addressed, "Dear Tanya, love John." Certain parts of the note that we learned from the investigation read, "You need to be strong now. Sorry I hurt you yet again. This time it was on purpose and to kill my pain of losing you. I had no one here." It continues, "I guess my actions today will guarantee you won't have to see me again or in heaven. I pray God will forgive me, but I know it won't happen. May you find peace in the days to come. You will hate me forever, and I know this."
So this suicide note that you saw, you read, was written to Tanya.
Yes.
And I just want to go back through some of the things you just said. It stated that John was sorry, that he states, "I'm sorry to hurt you yet again. But this time it was on purpose." Is that right?
Yes.
And he goes on to say, "I guess my actions today will guarantee you won't have to see me again or in heaven." Is that correct?
Yes.
What do you take from all of that?
I think that was his passive admission.
Admission of what?
Killing children.
And that part of that is he knows that Tanya can never forgive him for what he did.
Correct.
Last thing on that, "You will hate me forever, and I know this." Is that right?
That's correct.
And any doubt in your mind what he was saying?
I have no doubt in my mind.
What was he saying?
"Tanya, I killed the boys."
Skelton also spoke with a pastor after his suicide attempt. He kept claiming a woman named Joanne picked up the boys between 10 and 11 a.m. after Thanksgiving. She apparently was taking them to a secret organization. Around midnight, Skelton told the pastor he missed the kids. The pastor asked him where they were. John said, quote, "They're home," end quote. She tried to get more specifics from him and later told police Skelton told her he worried people thought he made Joanne up. Then John reportedly changed his story about when the boys left on Thanksgiving night.
He was pretty upset and told Pastor Galloway that I miss them so much. And Pastor Galloway asked, where are they? He said, they're home, they're at home. She pressed, and that she spoke to Galloway, or John Skelton again, and said he told her on the 27th that nobody believes me. They think I made up Joanne, that she's in my head. Seeking for clarification when Joanne picked the boys up, Galloway asked, so the boys didn't go with Joanne in the morning, Friday. Skelton told her that the boys went with Joanne Thursday night.
So that would have been Thanksgiving night.
Yes. Galloway asked directly where he took the boys, and he replied, home. I sent them home. Don't you understand? I sent them home.
What does that statement mean to you?
That he sent them to heaven.
The special agent also described interactions with John Skelton in the days following the boys' disappearance. Federal agents interviewed John from the hospital. They say even though he claimed to have left the boys with this underground group, he dropped their coats off at his aunt. He kept their asthma medication in booster seats and even made comments to his aunt about killing Tanya. The FBI said John ended the interview by asking for an attorney and that the last time he spoke with police without legal representation. State police also testified repeating much of the same information. Lieutenant Jeremy Brewer was part of the team that took over the case from Morenci PD. He said Skelton would talk to him about a range of topics, but would stop talking anytime he was asked about the boys, and that he too believes John killed his sons. He says John told him he was worried about his sons being safe with Tanya, so Lieutenant Brewer offered to talk to him about getting the kids with someone else. But Skelton just wasted time and made up a story about the kids being with an Amish community, a story he couldn't find any proof to be true. John gave the state police a name, Moses Gingrich. He turned out to be a former member of the Amish community who helped people leave the lifestyle.
And that led us to asking him if he'd be willing to come to Michigan and to do an interview with us and to possibly even get in front of John and to help us find these boys. Moses was 100% on board. He wanted to, number one, help us if there was something to do to help 3 missing children, but to also find out why this person in Michigan in prison for parental kidnapping and child endangerment would be mentioning his name. And so literally within just a few short months of John mentioning Moses to me, we had flown Moses to Michigan and conducted an interview with him, and then it went from there.
Okay, what happened next?
So next, Moses again agreed to meet with John. We cleared this with Michigan Department of Corrections. They said absolutely, do what you need to do. And so I went back, and John was kind of confused because usually, every few months he'd get used to me showing up, and this was probably off timing just a little bit. And so I spoke with John, and I said, hey, we've got some, really, really good news. I said that, we were able to track down Moses Gingrich. And his response, it just appeared 100% fake initially. He was like, well, did he find the boys? And it's not the kind of response that, yeah, if we just found your boys, you probably would be a little bit more excited or have a little bit more of a reaction than some fake rehearsed response. I said, no, we haven't found the boys, but he actually, agreed to talk to you, and we have him here today, and that's when I brought Moses in to the room. John's reaction to this was a little bit just unbelievable to me. He became white as a ghost. He couldn't formulate a sentence. He started visibly shaking, almost to the point I thought he might have a medical response.
Then Kelly Hodges took the stand. She's a criminal intelligence analyst in the Michigan State Police Cold Case Unit. She says she worked to determine the boys were alive before November 26, 2010. She went through 20 databases but couldn't find any evidence after that.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
just have to be careful.
Finally today, Tanya Zuvers took the stand. She's the mother of the missing boys. She's lived in Morenci her whole life for 58 years. She talked about when she met John Skelton. Zuvers says the couple got married in September of 2002. They had 3 boys, Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner.
Andrew was smart as a whip, wasn't a computer or video game that he could not conquer. I want to say he was probably around 4 or 5 and he was playing a video game and the girls had friends over and he did something on this video game. One of the friends said, "Whoa, wait a minute, I've been playing this game forever. I didn't know it did that. Show me how you did that." So here's this little 4-year-old showing this teenager how to play this video game, and so he was
Smart.
very smart. They all 3 were very smart.
And we're not here to determine who's the smartest. but
No.
I want a little bit of a description of each of the children.
Sure.
What about Alex?
He was very inquisitive. If he could take it apart and put it back together, he was happy. He loved to be friends with his sister's friends. They were his girlfriends, he liked to call them. He was going to be my ladies' man, I do believe. But fascinated with cell phones. Like, we always joke that someday he would be a cell phone programmer or builder or something like that, because he was so into how does it work, and that, you know, he just thought that was neat.
Yes. About Tanner.
Tanner was my baby. He had been 5 for 1 month when they went missing. Had just started in big school, was so excited to be in big school like his brothers. He was still had that little babiness to him. But he could tell stories, and he could tell them, and you would believe him because he would tell stories that were almost believable, and you're kind of going, I don't know, and then he would go, I'm just messing with you, and you're going, how do you do this, you know? But yeah.
It's safe to say they were all pretty sharp children.
Yeah, they were. And they were each other's best friends. They were, there's stuff that very rarely did they fight. They were, you know, but they were only like a year and 11 months apart, each of them. And so they're built-in best friends.
Tanya testified that she and John started having issues as a couple when John took Andrew and Alexander to Florida without her permission. That was September of 2010, just 2 months before the boys went missing. Shortly after, Tanya filed for divorce. She had to go to Florida in order to bring her sons home. Zuvers went to court with an attorney. She says John brought up her past as a sex offender. Zuvers had previously been charged for her relationship with a minor. The judge ruled the parents would bring the brothers home together. Then a court order took place and Zuvers got primary custody of her boys. That includes allowing John to have the kids for more than half of Thanksgiving vacation. That's when she says something changed.
The boys played soccer. We always outside playing. He was building a treehouse in the backyard for the boys and kind of starting to teach them about building and making cuts and using a hammer, and then it was like one day this switch flipped and just became somebody that none of us recognized.
Finally, after all 5 witnesses took the stand, it was time for closing statements. The attorney for the boy's mother laid out why her sons should be declared dead. She says it's about closure and putting a date on their tombstones. And the woman representing the boys, Andrew Alexander and Tanner Skelton, said they couldn't be in court because she believes they've been dead for nearly 15 years.
I've been sitting there on behalf of Andrew Alexander and Tanner Skelton, who could not be here today with us because they are deceased. This is not a typical case. It's both a unique and chilling experience as an attorney to have 3 clients that I've never had the opportunity to meet or speak with and will never have that opportunity. Based on the overwhelming amount of evidence that has been presented in this matter, and on behalf of my clients, Andrew Alexander and Tanner Skelton, I am joining the petitioner's request to have these 3 boys declared deceased and a finding that they have been deceased since on or about November 26th of 2010. Although I never got to meet any of my clients, I know that if they had been given to some unknown group or person, like John Skelton alleged over the years that the children had been given to, or were anywhere out there at any point after November 26th of 2010, at some point those boys would have found a way to make contact with someone to let them know that they were scared and that they weren't where they were supposed to be. How do I know this? I know this because on November 21st, 2010, just 5 days before the boys would never be heard from or seen again, 7-year-old Alexander Skelton made that phone call that you heard testimony about today to the police while he was at his father's home because he was scared when he couldn't find his father, John Skelton.
She has hoped and prayed that her children would return alive and safe. You just heard her testify that she had to come to grips with the fact that that's not going to happen. She knows that they're dead. She knows that they died on or about November 26, 2010. She has prayed this whole time that her heart would heal and someone would provide information on their whereabouts, even though she knew they weren't alive. She's hoped beyond all hope that the last person to see them alive, John Skelton, would offer any plausible explanation. He didn't even bother to show up today. He doesn't want any part of anything to do with these children because he murdered them. And he murdered them on or about November 26, 2010. It's time that we declare these children dead.
The trial was scheduled to continue over the next 2 days, but the judge heard from all of the witnesses today. She'll take tomorrow to deliberate and will come back with a decision Wednesday. You can follow along on our WTOL 11 social media pages on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. From there, we head east to Monroe County. That's where the trial is happening this week for a woman accused of driving while intoxicated and killing 2 children after crashing into a birthday party last April.
We were supposed to be planning a birthday party for Zane, not a funeral. They walked into that birthday party having a fun time. They were sitting at that table eating, and this woman crashed her car through this building, destroying all of our lives.
At an arraignment, the client has not been found guilty. We don't have prejudgment. My client has no record whatsoever. In fact, she has never even received a traffic ticket of the 50 years of driving.
The defendant is charged with count 1, homicide, 2nd degree.
The defendant is facing 2 life sentences. We have ample video evidence showing exactly what happened during this incident.
This is not a monster. It's horrible what happened. She had 1 glass of wine 4 hours prior.
She is a danger to this community, and that is illustrated no clearer than the 2 dead children that she is directly responsible for.
Your Honor, the $1.5 million in the murder charge, I don't know where that's coming from, but they have to prove it.
It took hours to seat a jury this morning and issue the deaths of 2 young siblings, 8-year-old Alana Phillips and her brother, 4-year-old Zane. They were with their parents at the birthday party inside the Swan Boat Club in Monroe County on April 20th last year. That's when Marshella Chidester crashed her car through the wall, killing them both and hurting 15 others. Surveillance video shows the moments before the crash. You can see here it's video jurors saw in court today. The defense asked the judge to allow an expert toxicologist to appear in court through Zoom. The prosecution objected to the use of a video call. The judge denied the motion on the grounds that it would prevent the prosecution from being able to accurately cross-examine the testimony as a witness. Then it was time for opening statements.
The party started at noon, and by a little before 3 p.m., the party guests had just finished singing happy birthday to the guest of honor. By all accounts, it was a very successful party. It was well attended, and the kids there were taking advantage of all the attractions. However, at the same time, less than 2 football fields away, at her home, the defendant was leaving, pulling out onto Branshaw Road. She was also headed to the boat club. Both of these events are memorialized on camera. The party was captured on the Swan Boat Club security cameras, and the defendant on a home camera mounted above her garage building across the street. Mariah Dodds, a longtime friend of Kristen's, and her 3 children, Jaden, Zane, and Alana Phillips, had just sat down at a table to enjoy their lunch from the party's hot dog bar. As they were beginning their meal, the defendant backed out of her driveway, accelerated her car in an arc out of her driveway, crashing into a small tree and then into her neighbor's full-size pickup truck, forcing it through a wooden fence. The defendant then places her car in drive and speeds off toward the boat club, just 4 houses down. As Mariah grabs cake pops at the dessert station for her kids, the defendant barrels at full speed down Branshaw Road and makes a right turn into the club parking lot.
This is very, very sad of what took place. Very sad. There's nothing nice or near nice of the events that took place, and 2 children died and people were injured. There's nothing. But what this case is about, bless you, what this case is about is, was there an intent to kill somebody?
The prosecution called Kristen Siegler to the stand. She was at the Swan Boat Club on April 20th. She said she smelled alcohol and Chidester and later helped pull Zane Phillips from under the car using wooden planks. The defense did not cross-examine her.
We had just got done singing happy birthday and everybody was just back to enjoy the party.
And did you go outside at some point on the phone?
I did. I received a phone call from my friend Amy because her children and her husband were there, but she couldn't make it. So I was FaceTiming her just to show her everything and catch up with her for a minute.
Okay. Did anything out of the ordinary happen then?
Yeah, there was very loud, what sounded like a bomb. I was right by the door, so I ran in and it looked like a bomb at that point. I didn't know what happened. There was just my son and his cousins right in the doorway. And so I got them outside and there was just debris everywhere.
4 of the 8 witnesses called to the stand today were at the birthday party when the crash happened. Court is set to resume tomorrow in the Chidester case, and it's scheduled to run through the end of the week before we get a verdict. Again, the death declaration hearing for the Skelton brothers is set for a decision Wednesday, and Dee Warner is supposed to go to trial this September. You can find extended cuts and investigations into these stories right here on WTOL 11+. Thanks for watching this special edition of your news on Plus tonight. I'm Kaylee Marentat.